All right. So, you have Eclipse open. Is this not working? It is. All right, so you have Eclipse should look like that. Close this. So we're gonna start a new project, right? And I'm gonna click File, New, Java Project. I'm gonna save this. And I get that window, right? And I'm gonna call this project class example. And I leave the rest of the info intact. I click finish. And there's my project, my project explorer. Notice the project we did last time still there. So in the project, I can click File, New, Class. And we call this class car, right? And I'm gonna check that box that says public static void main string arguments. And hit finish. Now this is what Eclipse is gonna look like. So, we created some fields. I'm going to have a set of static fields and a set of instance fields, right? And static fields, I only have one. Is the static int cars build. Right? And notice that the variable called cars build has italic letters. That is just a hint when you see it in your code. That is a static field. Then you need to add your instance fields. You have the year and color, the string, make, model, and license plate, and a Boolean is running. Oh, Boolean. I'm sorry. I was calling it bool. Bool is the Boolean for C. So now you have declare your fields, and I have these methods below. We call it start car, or the car, and that method, all it does is set your running variable to true. And the other instance method called shutdown car sets that running variable to false. Now, inside my main, do you have any questions there? That's what we did here.
Mine, I can't even get to that. I don't know what's going on.
Did you add a new class?
Just, I was out of the job.
We just call it car. All right. So notice if I try to do the is running false, I get this error. I got this red squiggly line, and it's yelling at me. It says cannot make a static reference to a non-static field is running. But I don't get this error here because the main is static. So the static, I can do cars build equals 0. That doesn't give me an error. Notice that? Because the main is a static method, and cars built is a static field, so they're like in the same family, right? So I'm going to declare some variables here. We have car, Tesla, and I'm going to make 2 cars, and second car was Viper. So when I declare those 2 variables, they're just pointers, right? So let's open Excel real quick. So I give you what it looks like in memory. So in the Excel I have here is just to represent your RAM. As an example. So I declare 2 variables. I need to add type here. Fine. Let's use. So I declare these two variables called Tesla and Viper. And that's what they look like in the RAM. They're like here. So what's the value of those variables? They're pointing nowhere, right? So remember what we called that bunch of zeros? Null. So those zeros, we call them nulls. And until we do something like this, Tesla equals new car. This constructs a Tesla. No, it doesn't construct a Tesla, it constructs a car. So if we type this code, so that new keyboard allocates memory, right? And let's say allocates this much memory. So this yellow section is going to be what the actual memory space one car uses. And the memory space starts at address 1128. So this is the equal sign, and then it is Tesla. There's a variable called Tesla, which is an address 1000. It's going to be pointing to 1128. So inside this memory, I have a variable called isRunning, a type boolean called isRunning. By default, it has the value false. So anything that was instance, everything is set to binary 0 in memory. So everything, the year, that's an int. So year is set to 0. And there's a string, a bunch of strings. And where do you think the make is the value of the string? Is a string a primitive or an object? Object, right? So if a string is an object and it's all set to binary 0, it means it's pointing to nowhere, right? So the make, model, I'm not gonna put them all, but make, model, license plate, since those are objects, they're set to binary 0. So it makes pointing nowhere. But then I go create my Viper car. So I add the Viper line. And what does this Viper line, this new line of code does? This constructs another car, right? So what happens in memory? You're just gonna allocate another same size of memory, contiguous amount. And let's make it green this time. And that's the memory space that holds a car, right? And this new car has value, a variable called is running, and the year is 0, and a bunch of strings. So that's what the constructor does. It creates those in memory, just like that. That's what the new does. So what the new does is allocates the size of a car in memory, and then it fills each address with whatever fields we have our methods. And then it returns the address where it begins. Oh, it begins on address 1184. So now the Viper is set to 1384, So now the Viper has that value. So far so good? Alright, so if in the code I do Tesla dot, oh look, I press dot and that shows up. What do you think all those things are? So notice those triangles are the static fields. Color. So the first is the name, so color is running license plate, and then there's a column after, and there's the type in, boolean, string. Remember your previous class when you did the diagrams, you had to do the variable name, column, variable type, when you do in your boxes in the UML diagrams. So that's pretty much what it is. And notice next to it there's a dash, and then says car. And some of them say car if you scroll down. Some of them say object. Except these two. It says shut down and start the car. Oh, look at the bottom. The bottom, if you scroll all the way down, there's a triangle, which is a variable, but it has an S. That means it's static. And if you haven't noticed, the green dots are methods. How do you know they're methods? Because they have parentheses. Where all those methods that say object come from? Well, we're going to talk about those in detail. But right now, let's focus on the ones that say car. So you got the shutdown car, the start the car. They are inside this class called car. As you can see, at the end it says car. So basically anything that's part of car I can do. See, I can start the car. So what happens in memory when you start the car? Well, it goes to the value Tesla, which is here, right? So address 1000 has this variable type object called Tesla, and is pointing to address 1128. And then you see the dot. So that means, oh, I gotta go to an instance, or actually I need to go to inside that variable. And inside, there should be a method called start car, which it is. I didn't write it here, but there's a method called start the car. There's a method in both, actually, because it's right here. So that's an instance method. So do you think it goes to Tesla and it goes to address 1128 and it goes inside that memory space, so the yellow one, and it's gonna look for where it says start the car, and it goes to start the car, and this is the method start the car. It's only one line of code, and what does that line do? It changes that variable called is running to true, right? I'm just saving everything I'm doing. So it changes to true. So if I go to memory, there are two versions here, or two memory spaces that says is running. Which one do you think is going to change? The yellow or the green one? The yellow one, right? Because the Tesla is the one I'm changing, and the Tesla is pointing to 1128, which is the yellow, and it goes find that method that changes that variable to true. So now if you look in memory from the outside, you could tell the yellow car is running and the green car is not, right? And you notice the yellow car is actually the Tesla, and the green car is the Viper. Right, and that. Reality, I mean, I'm doing this color stuff just trying to give you an idea how it works. But let me show you something. Alright, so let me add a couple of lines of code, see if it's true. System.out.print line is Tesla running. And I'm going to say post Tesla dot is running. And I'm going to duplicate that line, and I'm going to ask the same thing for the Viper. So if I run this program, what do you think it's going to say? When the Tesla is running and the car is running? I'm sorry, the Viper? It's running. So we click on that run button. And notice at the bottom of the screen what it printed out. Alright. So let me move that cars build line. Let me move it to here. right after the variable declaration and before I instantiate the cars. So first, I have no cars built, right? But after I build the Tesla, I want to increase my cars built. So I could say cars build equals 1, right? I can do that, no problem. And after I create the Viper, I can say cars build equals 2. So, and if I were to print at the end, system that out, the print line, cars build, like that,